Ludwig von Mises was a rather prickly Austrian economist, but it wasn't his personality that made him so many enemies among mainstream economists. Rather, it was the fact that he undermined everything that they believed in. For a start, Mises believed that most economists were wannabe physicists. They envied the way that scientists could understand and predict the world, and they wanted to do the same. But economic life isn't mechanical, it's human. And human beings are notoriously difficult to understand and predict. Indeed, it's often difficult to predict even your own actions. How often have you walked into a cafe without knowing what you really want until you've studied the menu? We never know how we're going to react to life's choices until we're actually confronted with them. They depend on what we value and how we feel. Economics is supposed to be about how people make choices, but no economist can know how you or millions like you are going to react and make choices at any particular moment. It depends on your values, which are deeply personal. Value is like beauty in the eye of the beholder. Is a cappuccino worth more than a latte? Some people think so, some people don't. Value doesn't exist in things. Value is how we think of things. And unless you understand that economics is about deeply personal choices that can't be measured scientifically, you'll never understand economics. Another issue that Mises had with the mainstream economists was the understanding of boom and bust cycles, something that's very relevant today. In 1925, Mises, together with his colleague Friedrich Hayek, started an institute to study these cycles. It was a time when most economists were throwing their hats into the air to welcome the Roaring Twenties, but this pair knew that something wasn't right. And 4 years later, Wall Street crashed and the Great Depression began. It wasn't greedy bankers or too little regulation that causes these boom-bust cycles. Rather, it is central bankers and politicians trying to keep interest rates too low. The low interest rates encourage businesses to borrow and build and expand and to hire. And yes, for a time, things boom, but only for a time. But those same low interest rates discourage savers. The flow of savings dry up and the banks haven't got as much money to lend anymore. Suddenly, all of those grand investment plans don't look too clever. And plans can't be changed as easily as the textbook economists suggest. You can't just take a new car plant and use it to make bicycles. When the bust comes, your assets are scrap, your money is wasted, your workers are out of a job. So how about some government spending in order to try and revive business? Well, that, says Mises, is rather like trying to cure a hangover by taking another drink. It was the boom that was the problem. The bust is the inevitable hangover. And if you want to avoid economic hangovers, the best thing to do is to avoid credit binges in the first place. The third way in which Mises annoyed the mainstream economists is to challenge their belief that the economy could be rationally planned. But think about it. Should we produce oil or wine? Both will require inputs of land, labour, bottles, transport, and much, much more. And meanwhile, millions of other products will be competing for exactly the same resources. How can anybody rationally choose which products and processes we should go with? But the capitalist economy calculates very easily through prices. Prices reflect what people value, and they steer resources to the most valued uses. By contrast, the socialist planner can't possibly know what millions of resources should be combined in what millions of ways to produce what millions of products. And it's not something that a computer can solve either. A computer can't know what people actually value. Which is where we came in. You can see why Mizes is still hated by mainstream economists even today. Put away your graphs and equations and computers, he tells them. These give you only the illusion of knowledge. Unless you understand that economics is about the values and choices of individuals, you'll never understand economics at all.
If you'd like to find out more, you can download this book for free at iea.org.uk.